I recently got a comment, well actually it was a reply to a comment on a video that insinuated that I know absolutely nothing about modern computers. I only know about old crappy junk. Well, these people would be surprised to learn that A, that's kind of my job, is to deal with computers. So I do know a thing or two about modern hardware, but even more importantly than that, I've actually built some modern machines, including that, which you just saw, which is my home theater PC. Let's see, there's the current specifications. Not bad. I put it together 2 years ago, and it's now time for an upgrade, because I'm trying to get myself onto a nice 2-year cycle, where my main computers get an upgrade. Really, I'm probably just going to focus on my main computer over there, and also that, because those are my two, I would say, primary use machines, and then everything else can get upgrades cycled down to it from there. But the 2200G, I think, is now 2 generations behind. Maybe only 1. I'm not really sure. The latest generation, I think it's technically 4th generation AMD Ryzen CPUs, but it's also technically the 3rd generation. I don't know. It's their product lineup just got kind of really weird. But either way, I was considering 2 options, but I went with neither of them for reasons that we are about to discuss. Well, let's show you the new hardware. Here is the new hardware. Those of you that know and have watched my previous build videos, my previous purchasing habits as far as computers go, well, you're probably sitting there shaking your head because this is completely different than what I would normally buy. You see, it's 2021, July 2021 to be exact. Well, the end of July, it's almost August now. And we are in the midst of a CPU, or actually it's a silicon in general, shortage. So, for the last long while that I've been looking at actually doing this, the AMD chips that I would actually like to buy for this project, of which there were 2, there was the R5 3400G, which was my preferred option as an actual upgrade, and then there was also the 3200G, the R3 3200G, which would have just been a refresh. I would have been okay with that too. Neither one of them were available from the local computer store, and the alternative option would be to go to Newegg, and Newegg was almost double the price, so that was a non-starter. So then I ended up having to look at Intel stuff, and I've been looking at Intel stuff for work to try and refresh some machines there, so that's why I ended up picking what I ended up picking. Again, I would have gone with the 11th generation, but it was like way over budget for this, so I went with the i5 10600K. I don't need the i7. I don't even really need this, but this is the one that was available. There were very few options to pick from. And even at that, this was almost $150 more than I would have wanted to spend on a CPU, so... Oh well, so I spent that, and then I got this, because this was one of the only boards that was available. The Asus Prime B560M. I've never been a fan of Asus boards. I've had nothing but trouble with them in the past. But I figure this is nice and new and modern and shiny. I'll give them another try, and we'll see what this can do. I built a bunch of server machines at work that base themselves on Asus boards. So, why not? They've been reliable, so who's to say that this can't be? But of course, this was also $140. I think the CPU was $280 on sale. It's normally $300. So that alone was a significant portion of the budget. In fact, this was the budget that I was planning on spending on this upgrade, about $400. So I had to skimp on everything else, which is why I ended up with this RAM kit. Although this RAM kit does support maximum speed for the CPU, which is DDR4 2666. I'm not sure if it can go higher with OC. I guess it is OC, but the XMP profile. But, it's probably a decent RAM kit. I usually like G-Skill stuff, so we have that. And then we got this, which was the cheapest NVMe SSD they had. Normally Seagate I shy away from because I've had a lot of trouble with their hard drives, but it's something worth trying. If it sucks balls, I can always just replace it. So I keep backups. So let me get all this stuff unpacked and set up, and we can install Windows and then get it into the case. In search of incredible. Ooh. Alright. So we'll get that out. Hopefully I can do that with one hand. So that way we can get to all of the remainder of the pieces here. I don't know how you're supposed to get that out without taking this whole thing out. I don't know if I can even get it out with one hand. You can see there's a couple SATA cables. Do they only give you 2 SATA cables? They only give you 2 SATA cables. It's kind of stingy, but I think that's typical for micro ATX motherboards. We have this. I don't know what this is. I think this is actually for a wireless card. They call this the Key E. Is it M.2? Is it still M.2 for the wireless? I don't actually know. But I'm guessing that's what that's for. Said that was an optional add-on, but I guess it's not. We have, I don't even know what. For use with single-sided M2 SSD, stick this pad onto the existing M2 pad. No idea. There's a couple of standoffs. I wonder if those are for the M.2. I think they probably are. Yeah, I'm guessing they probably are. It's probably for that. Those pieces right there. There, of course, is your I/O plate. This does not have the fancy audio. Oh no, that's for wireless. Never mind. So if you had the Wi-Fi stuff, you can stick your Wi-Fi dongles there. But does this one even support that? Well, I guess it kind of does, but anyway. There's your user guide, and for whatever reason, I'm actually kind of amazed that they still give you a driver CD. You know, most people don't have optical drives anymore, but whatever, I do. I'm one of the few people who actually does still use an optical drive. So I'm going to get all this stuff cleared up, we'll get the motherboard out, and get the CPU installed. Well, this is superbly annoying. You can see here, we've got this box, and I was wondering why this was so thin, and I was going to go on a huge rant about how crappy Intel coolers are. Well, the box is so thin because there is no cooler. Look at that. No cooler. Typical Intel to not include a cooler with their consumer-grade CPUs. You know, AMD would never do something like that. I mean, I know that they do have chips that don't have coolers, but those are thread rippers. You know, the high-performance server-grade workstation business, you know, whatevers, that people are going to be supplying their own heat sinks for anyway. So why include a cooler? I guess this is the K SKU, so that's why they think they can get away with not including a cooler, but realistically speaking, they don't include a cooler because they know that their cooler is bunk. You know, like, this is basically what they would have given you, and this is probably barely suitable for 40 watts worth of TDP, let alone the 125 watts that is. So I don't even know if I've got something that's going to support 125 watts. Normally I would buy a deep cool FET at 20, but those are only good to 95. This that I have sitting right here, which is a Cooler Master Hyper T2, I don't have any specs for it. So I don't know if it's good to 125 watts. Hopefully it is. Hopefully it actually works. Otherwise I'm going to be buying a new cooler. And maybe even a new case. I have to buy a bigger cooler than this, because as it is, I don't even think this is going to fit in that NSK 2400. So the cost of upgrading hardware, I swear, if I'd gone AMD, I wouldn't have this problem. But time marches onwards. I guess if the hardware is decent enough, and I suppose it probably will be, because it's decent. I mean, let's get real here. Then it'll be worth the cost in the end. But still, that's really frustrating. Okay, before I go ahead and install the heatsink, I figured it was probably a good idea to install the M.2, which you can see there. Hopefully it will actually work in that SSD slot. Somehow or another, I kind of doubt it, but I guess we'll find out. Also has a nice little heatsink pad. Not that that cheap uber cheap SSD is going to need it, but that's a nice touch. So we'll go ahead and we'll install that, and then I'll install the RAM, and then I'll put the cooler on, and then maybe we can finally get out a power supply and test this thing. Okay, the calamity of errors ensues, or continues, or whatever. I've got the RAM installed, I have the cooler installed, and heat pasted and all that stuff. I hope it's going to actually work, because reusing these heat sinks is not really the most, well, decent proposition. You know, you're not supposed to reuse these Intel heat sinks. They're supposed to be used once, but that's kind of an unbelievable waste, so whatever. I wanted to use my my nice cooler, and I pulled off of another machine. That would be this one. You know, it's pretty decent. It's still only aluminum, but at least it's got a nice back plate. But this is LGA 775, which is incompatible with the 1200 that this is. Leave it to Intel to do something dumb like that, but whatever. I have the SSD installed, I have the RAM, I mentioned the cooler already, but I'm going to have to jump straight to the deployment phase. I cannot do any testing while it's on my workbench. Why? Well, the more subtle things is that this needs a 4-pin power connector, sorry, an 8-pin power connector, and I don't have a power supply that can supply that just laying around right now. Well, I do, but it's outside, and I'm not getting it at almost 3 o'clock in the morning. But the bigger one is take a look at the port arrangement. Notice something missing. There's no VGA, which is excusable, I guess. You know, manufacturers have been on a crusade against legacy ports for years. Although it's got a PS2 port. Whatever. But there's no DVI. Now, if you're going to get rid of the VGA, quite frankly, you are required to provide a DVI port. Because that's just stupid to not include that. You've got the space for 2 HDMI ports, but no space for DVI. Like, look at all this empty space where they could have put a DVI port. And they didn't do it? Is this a joke? So what, are you expecting that everybody is going to go out and buy all new peripherals when they upgrade their hardware? Do you have any idea how wasteful that is? Good lord. You know, just another reason that I am suddenly regretting going with Asus and Intel, because this is just not right for a consumer grade system. If I were building it for a business where expense doesn't necessarily matter, well, it does, but you can spend more as a business, then whatever, you know, that wouldn't be a big deal. Or if I were supplanting, and I guess I am supplanting a mostly modern system with this, but it's incompatible with every single piece of hardware I've got on my test bench, which should not happen. Maybe that's a sign I should upgrade my test bench. Somebody's going to say that. Maybe, but I shouldn't have to upgrade my test bench for the one time I'm going to use a piece of hardware like this. It's just silly. So I guess we're pulling out the old HT PC and just swapping it right in and hoping that it works. Because what else am I going to do? Okay. Here is the existing hardware, which you can see. And all of it is going to come out. And that includes the existing SSD, which is down in there somewhere, hiding. I'm going to pull it out and set it all aside because it's going to be used to upgrade something else. Okay, there you can see I've cleared out the entirety of the motherboard area. A couple of things that I've removed. Number one is the existing SSD. There it is, the Lexar. It's the first time it's seen the light of day since I put it in there. Which is in this 5 1/4 inch bracket, so I can reuse this bracket now for something else, which is very useful because I got a lot of uses for those. Other things that I removed, you can see at the back, I used to actually have two things. Number one was this little USB thingy here, branded MSI. I'm not really sure what these lights are for. They're connected to this, which looks like I could plug into a USB port, but I don't want to burn up a USB port to try it. Not on something that's nice, so maybe I'll put that in some junk Pentium 4 box and see what it does. But I thought that extra USB would be a nice thing to have on this. I've never found a utility for it, so whatever. And then this is an eSATA, which I probably only put in there as a blank, and I've never found utility for it either, so we replaced them with actual slot blanks now. So I gotta get this out, and I get the new one in, and hopefully it will actually fit. Well, it's in place. Unfortunately, do you see the problem that I see? That cooler is going to be too tall. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to get the cover on. And I might even have to get a bigger cooler than that, because I don't know if this is only rated for 95 watts, or if I can do more than that. You know, again, leave it to Intel. I'm not really sure what they're doing over there. They seem to be content to be stuck on the ancient 14 nanometer manufacturing process, which is why these chips are so, why the TDP is so high, is because it's such an old manufacturing process. AMD is on what, 7? I'm pretty sure that their newest Zen 3 architecture is on 7 nanometers. That maybe not so much. I think that's 11 nanometers, but still, you know, look at that cooler, which really doesn't have much to it. And that's more than sufficient for that, because that's only 65 watts. Now, I know it's apples to oranges. I'm comparing an R3 2200G to an i5 10600K. So, I mean, take from that what you may, but still, I think it's kind of silly that Intel is just so content on sticking with what works, even though, no, it really doesn't work. 125 watt TDP is ridiculous in the year 2021. Even for a K SKU CPU. Like, that's i9 territory. So, whatever. Let me hook up the rest of this. Alright. I believe everything is plugged in. One nice thing I am going to say, I'm going to give Asus credit for, is that they actually give you more than one fan header. So I was able to get rid of this little adapter here. So that was nice. But I guess all that goes out the window if it doesn't work. So, here we go. Go ahead and we'll kick it on. Or we won't. Why is it not powering on? Oh, for crying out loud. Okay, pays to double check your front panel connections. I had the power button on the wrong 2 pins. Well, there's a fan that's got something grinding. I don't know which one it is. It's that one. Delete should get me into setup. Asus in search of incredible. Yay! New... Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to turn this fan off so it's not buffeting the camera with wind noise. But, AMI, that's a new logo. Concede, blah, blah, blah. New CPU installed. No keyboard detected, even though I've got a keyboard right here. Press F1 to continue and do whatever. And whatever, whatever, whatever. I guess it's not going to light my keyboard. Nope, I'm going to have to go get another keyboard. Well, that's kind of ridiculous. Alright, take 2 with a PS2 keyboard this time. That stupid thing is stuck in that fan again. Okay, should go into setup, right? Yeah, here we go. UEFI setup. I'm going to have to tie that wire, I think. So you can see everything. CPU temperature 50 degrees. Well, I was expecting a lot worse than that, but Maybe that heatsink will be suitable. I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I guess we'll find out once I start using it. I should probably replace it. I think one of the pins is a little broken anyway. So, but we'll deal with it in time. As long as the system works for right now, I'm okay with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this BIOS to my liking, and then we will go ahead and try and boot over the network and reload the image of the old HTPC onto this. I may end up just having to reinstall Windows from scratch, but I'm going to try not to, because I'd like this to be configured like the old one. Okay, I'm going to be bluntly honest. Here's some more retardation on the part of this Intel platform. So, what's going on? Well, I wanted to be able to boot to my network. And one of the first things that I would have done would have been to enable the compatibility support module. But guess what? Let's take a look at this. Launch CSM is grayed out and set to disabled. And I can't actually select it. Oh, that's not what I want. You can see I'm pushing the key to go down, and it's not working. Why not? Well, I did a little bit of research. And apparently, on these new Intel 5500 series chipsets, Intel disabled the ability to allow you to launch the CSM if you're using the integrated graphics. Now, what kind of mental capacity error did somebody have when they decided that that was a brilliant idea? What the hell? Like, what the actual hell, Intel? So, this is the first Intel platform I've bought since Haswell, and it'll probably be the last I ever buy, because this is just dumb. Every aspect of this is dumb. Oh, and the other thing, apparently that NVMe SSD will not work in the primary NVMe SSD slot. It just doesn't see it. So, way to go, guys. You have just absolutely ruined my entire rest of the night. It's now 4 o'clock. This should have been done 2 hours ago. But because of mental retardation on the part of Intel, it's not going to be. Dumb. It booted something. Oh my god. Holy crap. Okay, so full disclosure, I am a dumbass still, because I didn't pay attention, and the front panel USB header was not plugged in to all of the plugs. So that's why my USB keyboard didn't work. So that's fine. And that's also why it wouldn't see my USB boot device initially. So we've got this. I'm still kind of annoyed I cannot boot CSM, because that means I cannot PXE boot, which would have made this so much easier. But oh well, I'm going to go ahead and install Windows here, and I guess we'll see where we go from there. It's almost 5 o'clock in the morning now, so I probably should save this for tomorrow. But we can at least get started, I guess. Wow, that was a fast install. It's already done. So now I gotta go through this process. I'll have to make sure it's on my network properly and install programs. I'm going to do that first, and then we'll get the updates. But it looks like the video works out of the box, so that's neat. Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, you can see that this is very clearly a hilariously out-of-date version of Windows. Number two, I'm going to have to adjust the overscan because it's wrong. And number three, look, it's actually offered to do this. This motherboard comes preloaded with a LAN driver. Does it now? Well, we're just going to go ahead and download it, because why not? I gotta say, now that I'm past all of the stupidity, I do like this Intel scaling tool. I think that it's much better than the AMD one, which only lets you do certain increments, and that will, like, it's a rectangle. It's not like you can do the vertical and the horizontal individually, which I think I have to do on this TV because it's an oddball size. I think the scaling is good. I think that's fine. I can see all of it, so now you gotta do all the rest of the software junk that it's decided to load. Okay, so I've gone ahead and installed pretty much everything that needed to be installed. All the programs, all the updates. Again, there's a look at the specs. See, 21H1. Everything is fully up to date. That is going to conclude the video, so thank you for watching. If you've got any comments, feel free to leave them down below. Oh, before I leave though, I do still stand by my opinion on Intel hardware. I'm not real fond of it. I did get it working after a fight, but I should not have had to fight that. That should have been done pretty much right away, and it was not. So I'm not in a hurry to buy any more Intel hardware for anything that I need to buy. So I suppose if I had gone with the 400 series chipset as opposed to the 500 series, which is what this is, the 560 in particular, if I'd gone with the 400 series, it probably would have been fine, but I don't know. Who knows, maybe even the AMD wouldn't have been fine. But that just is a completely ridiculous limitation on that, and really limits my future ability to do much of anything on this. And for what? Like, realistically, for what? But I guess in the next video, I'll be putting the AMD hardware in that machine there. And maybe there'll be further videos. I might not make a video. It's a lot of duplicated information. I guess we'll see.